Kia ora and welcome everyone to today's webinar. I will open with a karakia for our session. Mauri ora kia mātou, arahina mātou ia mātou mahi. Ki mihia he huarahi mō te kaupapa o te mātauranga hangarau, a whina atu, a whina mai. Te pau e here nei ia mātou, hui e, tae ki e. Today, I'm delighted to introduce Craig Pattison, a passionate New Zealander dedicated to making AI and emerging technologies accessible for all Kiwis. Over the past 5 years, Craig has been leading the way in helping educators and leaders move beyond the hype towards practical, values-driven integration of AI in Aotearoa. Through his work with Capability Collective, he supports Kaiako and schools to build confidence, capability, and ethical literacy in AI education, ensuring our learners are truly future ready. In today's session, Craig will be building on his recent workshop at the TENZ conference to explore how Kaiako can move from AI literacy to AI fluency, confidently applying AI tools and frameworks across the curriculum. He'll unpack real New Zealand examples, the 6 pillars of AI understanding, and share practical classroom applications through a Te Ao Māori lens. You'll leave this session ready to use strategies and resources to design ethical, engaging learning experiences that prepare ākonga for an AI-enabled world. Welcome, Craig.
Kia ora, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen, hopefully. And with a bit of luck, if someone could give me a signal to say that they can see the slides, that would be super
All good, Craig.
useful.
You're good to go.
All right. Okay, we shall kick off. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Craig Pattison, tua ko ingoa. Honoured to be here with you this afternoon. Whether you're in primary, secondary or tertiary, or perhaps leading teams or departments, hopefully this session is for you. Today we're going to focus on moving from AI literacy to AI fluency. So that's not just understanding what artificial intelligence is, but using it with purpose, confidence and values. Some of you joined the recent TENZ masterclass, where we built some of the foundations, and today we're going to go a little bit deeper. We're going to bring in real examples from Aotearoa, we ground our thinking in Te Ao Māori, and we equip you with a framework you can apply. Before we begin the webinar this afternoon, a quick note to everyone. You'll see the slides in front of you, and what I'd like you to do is have a pen and a bit of paper, or perhaps if you're using technology, open up Word or Notepad or something like that, because I'd like to invite you throughout this webinar to do some reflection points. And even though this is a one-way webinar, you'll gain some value by pausing, writing and thinking. So we're going to set the scene. And so the very first activity for everyone on the webinar is to take a moment and think about what does fluency in AI look like in your context? What's one word or one phrase that stands out for you when you think about AI fluency? So I'll give you some time to prepare and take a moment to write down your answer. So that's probably enough time to sort of get started. So hold that thought, glance down at it, think about what you've written, and let's substantively get into today's webinar. So the first thing we're going to do is just walk you through the agenda, the whakataki, setting the scene. Then we're going to go from literacy to fluency. What does it really mean? We're going to have a look at 6 pillars of AI understanding, a Te Ao Māori lens, which is integrating culture, values and identity. Then there's some New Zealand-based scenarios with some practical examples across primary, secondary and tertiary to whet your appetite. and then a call to action for your next step so that you're able to reflect, act, and lead. And I've got a couple of little sound bites. One of them is fluency isn't the destination, but it certainly is the direction. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to have a look at the who, the why, and the what. So ko-wai-o, who am I? Craig Pattison, founder of Capability Collective, passionate about making AI accessible and ethical for educators in Aotearoa. Why is this kōrero so important now? As we all know, AI is moving faster than we can keep up with. Our learners are using it, and our education must lead, not lag, my belief. It's time for us to move from awareness to confidence and be values-led in that action. And what I hope you will gain from today's webinar, a practical framework, real New Zealand-based examples, strategic clarity to begin embedding AI in teaching and leadership with purpose and integrity for 2026. On to the next one. So literacy versus fluency. So let's clarify the terms. AI literacy means knowing what AI is being aware of, risks and opportunities. Many of you are already working at that level. And AI fluency, however, is the next step in that journey. It means confidently using the AI tools, critically evaluating the outputs, aligning AI use with your values, and embedding it meaningfully into learning, not just as an add-on to the things that you're doing. For me, I believe that fluency is about agency. For me, it's knowing when not to use AI as much as when to use it, and guiding others and leading change. And in the context of New Zealand curriculum, especially Te Mātaiaho, we're invited to design the future-focused, inquiry-rich, learner-centred education. And I believe that AI fits here if we guide it and not just adopt it outright. So today we're going to explore 6 pillars of understanding and look through a Te Ao Māori lens, walk through real classroom scenarios, and hopefully you'll leave with some ideas that you can apply immediately, either over the catching up with friends over the Christmas break or early into your planning for 2026. So another challenge for you now, if you've got a pen or you've got Note or Word or something open, in your notes, here's the question. What's one area of your current practice where you think you've achieved AI literacy and one where you'd like to become more fluent? So that's one where you think you've achieved AI literacy and one where you would like to become more AI fluent. I'll give you a few moments to write that down. Now we shall proceed, otherwise you might think the screen's stopped. So let's move on to the next slide. What I'd like to do is introduce you to the 6 pillars of understanding, the foundations for fluency. Here are the foundational pillars. Each pillar should give us a way to think and act. It should move us from knowing about AI to operating with it. And over the next few minutes, I'm going to break down and walk through each of them. But if we have a look at the slide that's in front of you, the learning area, whakapapa. So that's understanding where AI comes from, who made it, and why. Then we've got Māori, respecting data as tonga, with identity, waiura, and context. Then we've got whātanga, challenging bias and ensuring diverse voices are represented. Pukenga, building confidence and skill in using AI tools effectively. Ngā matapono, applying AI with ethics, values, and school tikanga, and ako, learning with AI, not from it, through inquiry and reflection. So let's break down what each of the 6 pillars of AI understanding are. Let's start with pillar 1, whakapapa of AI. Think of AI's origins. Where did it actually start? Who built it? How has it evolved? What assumptions were built into it? So in your classrooms for next year, you might ask your ākonga to create a timeline of key AI milestones, such as Alan Turing, the early algorithms, the development of Siri, and ChatGPT. So for example, Alan Turing's milestones. In 1936, he created the Turing machine, which defined the basics of computation and algorithms. So AI has been around for at least that time, 1936. In 1950, he created the Turing test, which proposed a way to judge if a machine could behave like a human. Then there was some early AI work where he designed one of the first chess algorithms. And then the early AI systems started to do game programs in the 1950s. They started with checkers and chess programs. And then they did the first in 1955, Logic Theorist, which was an AI program which proved math theorems. And just before 1960, the term machine learning was created by Arthur Samuel, who built a self-improving checkers program and coined the term machine learning. So it's been around since 1959. In 1966, Eliza was the first chatbot that simulated a therapist-style conversation. Then we move into the 2000s with Siri. And Apple bought Siri and launched it with the iPhone 4S, bringing voice assistants to the mainstream. And then a significant change in 2017 with the introduction of ChatGPT with transformers. And Google introduced the architecture behind the modern large language models. In 2020, GPT-3 was launched, and it was a major leap in language generation. And in 2022, public release reached 1 million users in under a week and sparked a global interest and widespread adoption in generative AI. So this helps you and your ākonga realize AI isn't neutral, and it has been shaped, and it has been with us for some significant time. And so I'm going to pause and another reflective prompt for all of you. In your learner's world, what are the origin stories of AI? So in your learner's world, what are the origin stories of AI? How might they shape their view of the tool and also of its purpose? So 2 parts. In your learner's world, what are the origin stories of AI? And how might that shape their view of the tool and its purpose? And as you can see from the slide, what are the origin stories in your classroom? Discuss who built the tools and why, and invite learners to create a timeline so that we do have a whakapapa. So I shall pause while you're thinking about that. Right, we shall move on to pillar number 2. So pillar number 2, Māori of data. Data is more than just digital. It carries identity, context, whakapapa, and wairua. In class, you could ask students to sort information, such as names, pepeha, writing, and images into tapu, protected, or noa, shareable, when entering them into generative AI tools. This leads to discussion about data sovereignty, consent, and care. So now another reflective prompt. Would you, and a challenge for you on this webinar, would you enter your PPH into an AI system? Why or why not? So would you enter your PPH into an AI system? Why or why not? And what principles would guide that decision? So I shall pause while you're thinking about that. Would you enter your PPH into an AI system? Why or why not? And what principles guide that decision? Excellent. As you're writing that, we shall move on to the next pillar. Pillar 3, Whiwatanga, inclusion. AI systems reflect the worldviews embedded in their training data. A challenge for you next year with your students is to ask them, or perhaps before you break for Christmas, ask them, describe a great leader via AI and analyse the result. Who appears, who is missing, and why? And then ask them, describe a Māori leader, and then compare and question the results. So I'll just go through that again. Describe a great leader via AI, analyse that result. Who appears, who is missing, and why? And then ask, describe a Māori leader, or Pacifica, or some other, and compare and question among the group. So I've made some notes around obvious things that are often missing, and they are as follows. So who is missing? Women are often missing. Indigenous people, including Māori, people of Pacifica, Asian, African, and Middle Eastern descent, youth or elders, leaders shown outside Western business settings, and leaders represented in communal, relational, cultural, or collective forms of authority. So you may ask yourself, why is this happening? Because the AI image generators and text models often reflect patterns which are within their training data, and it has traditionally heavily featured Western business leadership imagery, men in position of authority, clean corporate aesthetics, individual rather than collective leadership. And as a result, when you've asked for a great leader, the model reproduces the statistically common leadership archetype in its data, not a culturally diverse or globally representative one. From a technical perspective, this is called algorithmic bias, and it highlights how AI tends to reinforce existing power structures unless explicitly instructed otherwise. Some of you may already know that I sit as Head of Delegation for New Zealand for JTC1 SC42 NZ Mirror Committee, a mouthful, but in summary, Head of Delegation for the development of artificial intelligence standards. And as a result, you'll be pleased to know that in the original artificial intelligence standard that was released, Te Ao Māori and was referenced within the appendices, and there has been a lot of interest and a lot of support for Indigenous values and cultures to be not only reflected in the development of international standards, but codified and developed ongoing, so that the large language models have a more culturally nuanced and diverse set of training data that is more representative of the global economy that we live in. So be rest assured. A reflection prompt now. Whose values and stories are visible in AI tools and who's invisible? And what does that mean for how we use these tools in learning? So whose values and stories are visible in AI tools? And I've given you some sense of that, but don't take my word. Please be curious and use your own inquiry. And whose are invisible? And what does that mean for how we use these tools in learning? So I shall pause again. Okay, let's have a look at pillar number 4. So pukenga, fluency means skill, not just awareness. So here's a challenge for you. Try this at the end of this webinar or during the webinar. 2 prompts if you have access to generative AI, and please make sure that it's appropriately, that the settings are appropriately locked down, and if not, reach out to me after this and I'll give you some guidance on how you can do that. But the 2 prompts, one vague. The first vague prompt is explain climate change, and one refined, explain climate change to a year 5 student in New Zealand using a local example. And then compare each AI response, which is clearer and which is more relevant. So one is just a vague prompt, explain climate change, and then the other is a lot more nuanced and a lot more specific. And the reason for talking to you about this is that if you move into tool fluency, some of you will have heard a term called prompt engineering. The better you are at prompt engineering, the more nuanced and more accurate and more discernible the information that you receive from generative and AI tools are likely to be. And for the purposes of this webinar, I'm going to talk you through what I believe is a good format to use that so that you can get super specific. So be specific about what you want, but not rigid. So there's a difference. Be specific, but not rigid. The more clearly you describe your intent, context, and constraints, the better the AI can produce the results you think you would imagine. But the prompt should still leave room for the model's strengths, which are pattern finding, creativity, and inference. Now, you'll be asking yourself, why does this matter? Because most of the failed or disappointing AI outputs come from prompts that are too vague, something like write something about leadership, missing context, so they don't have for whom, for who, or for what purpose, or missing the constraints, so tone, length, format, audience. And AI doesn't guess your goals, it just fills in gaps with the most common patterns that are present in its training data. Your job is to steer it. And so if you've got a pen or if you're typing notes in Word or some other thing, here's a fail-safe formula. First one is goal. What's the goal? The next one is context. What's the context? The next one is format. So that's goal, context, format. And then the final one is criteria. So that's goal, context, format, criteria. And that will equal a reliable output. So an example is write a 150-word summary for high school students explaining why Alan Turing is important. Use plain language and 3 bullet points. Now, this will significantly outperform just asking it to explain Alan Turing. So we're up to the reflective prompt. How could refining a prompt shift the quality and relevance of the AI response? And what does that teach us about digital literacy? So I'll go back to the formula, and there are many, but this is a very good one. Write the goal, the context, the format, and the criteria. And if you follow that, your prompting not only will build your confidence, but the results you get back are likely to be significantly improved on previous attempts. And then also a note for the audience, which I shared in the masterclass in Wellington. Because it's generative, if there are aspects of the information that comes back that you would like to retain, then please, as you're working through it and layering, get it to retain that information, as in please do not regenerate blah. And then that way it'll retain that and build on it. Otherwise, if not, because it's generative, every single time you give it an instruction, it'll regenerate from the beginning. Now, over time, it does learn a little bit about you and a little bit about the inquiry you're making, but a significantly easier way to ensure that you continue to build on things that are good is to ensure that you tell it when you want it to retain that information and when you want it to regenerate or extend the information that you're seeking to get advice on, or whatever it may be that you're actioning. So I shall pause for a minute and I'll just read the reflection prompt again. How could refining a prompt shift the quality and relevance of AI's response? And what does that teach us about digital literacy? So once again, I will pause. Okay, let's move on to pillar number 5. Ngā matapono. This pillar asks, really, what are the values that drive our AI use? Should we always use AI? In your class, I would challenge you or encourage you, wrong word, encourage you to debate. Should we allow AI-generated content in school assessments? How does it consider fairness, access, originality, and learning? And that's a real challenge, I appreciate. But it's a great conversation to start having because the horse is already bolted. Generative tools are already ubiquitous. So the reflection prompt for this slide is, do your digital policies include AI? So do your current technology policies in your school or institution include AI? And if so, what values should guide your school's use of generative tools in learning and assessment? Now, one plug, if I may indulge you. As mentioned, I provide leadership support through my role as head of delegation for the artificial intelligence and other international standards. And I work with the international standards community. Recently, I was self-funded, went out to Sydney. There were just on 50 countries and 200 delegates or more discussing all aspects of artificial intelligence, including healthcare, education, financial services, etc., where privacy, ethics, equity, and accessibility are really important. So I can work with your school boards and education leaders to help you develop values-aligned AI policies, understand the risks and opportunities, and implement safe and equitable future-ready AI use. And most importantly, actually just build staff and educators' confidence in navigating all of the changes that are happening with an AI. So if your school or your board wants some support in shaping those responsible AI policies or practices, just sing out. At the end of this slide is my contact details, and I'd be more than happy to field a call or an email from you and see what we can do. Those that know me know that I'm a great blend of commercial and voluntary, and all of the work that I do for international standards is voluntary, and I do lots of work around education, awareness, ethics, etc., in a voluntary capacity. So I need it for you to understand that it would be affordable as well. But I just want us to be a very successful, coherent, and cohesive network of people that are discovering, sharing ideas, communicating together. Enough said. We'll move on to pillar number 6. So co-learning with AI. So here we shift from the teacher tool to co-learning. The students might use AI to draft a story, for example, and then edit it in a voice or cultural context or clarity and critique the tool. They therefore learn alongside AI rather than just relying on it. And so the reflection on this is, in what ways can AI help learners explore, create, and reflect without replacing their own thinking, their own creativity, and their own voice? So the reflective prompt, in what ways can it help learners explore, create, and reflect without replacing their own thinking, their own cultural context, their own unbelievably amazing creativity, and their own voice? So I shall pause while you think about how you might do that and how you might encourage and support that to happen with your students. And then one final challenge just before we move on to the next part of the webinar, which is Te Ao Māori, is which pillar stood out most for you and why? So as we move through the rest of the presentation, which pillar stood out from you from the 6 and why? So let's now move on to the Te Ao Māori plus AI pathways of integrity. So in Aotearoa, our educational context does invite more than technical fluency. It invites cultural integrity. So when we apply a Te Ao Māori lens to AI, we should ask, who holds the mana over the data? How do we uphold kaitiakitanga? And are we enhancing or diminishing whakapapa? So as you look at the slide, and I've broken it into 3 aspects, a real world example from a kura kaupapa. Ākonga used an AI text generation tool to draft purako, but the process was framed by tikanga. So no sacred stories were used. All drafts were reviewed by Kaiako, final versions narrated in Te Ao Māori, and published as digital taonga. The result was that the students felt empowered, culturally grounded, and using AI in a way that reinforced their identity, not undermined it. And so as we look at the 3 that are reflected on this slide, when we consider kaitiakitanga, how are we guardians of data and tool use? When we consider mana akitanga, how do we treat learners and their cultures with respect when using AI? And when we consider rangatiratanga, how do we enable ākonga to lead, question, and be their most amazing creative selves? So your interactive, reflective prompt is, in your context, what value from Te Ao Māori or others, such as Pacifica with Whanawhale or others, could you embed in your AI-supported learning? So what value from Te Ao Māori or other aspects could you embed in your AI-supported learning? That's one part. And what question about data, identity, or culture will you now ask your wider team, your wider students, your faculties, etc. So what's the value and how could you embed it in learning? And what question about data identity or culture will you now ask your team? So I shall pause again as you reflect and write your thoughts. Okay, on to Te Ao Māori, Pathways of Integrity, the AI Classroom Challenge, because we wanted this to be practical for you. And so there are a number of things on this slide to read, so I'll give you a minute or two to read through it because it's quite content heavy. I do appreciate that. But as you can see, it's broken into 4 parts with 4 outcomes. So there's some taonga, reflect on its use, set tikanga together and apply safety. And for each of them, a descriptor around the outcomes. And I believe at the end of this presentation, the slide deck will be available for you all. So it's not necessary to write all the things down. But in a classroom activity, you might want to explore. So something you might want to start 2026 with, or even close 2025 out with, is a learner's brainstorm. So what is our taonga and how we might share our stories, our photos, or our local kōrero. And then in groups, ask them, would we input this into an AI tool? And if we did, why or why not? So that it builds their confidence, it builds curiosity, it ensures that it's guided and instructed led, but also it surfaces underlying assumptions and it gives a better understanding of how to use AI tools in partnership rather than exclusively or potentially not at all. And then together you could draft a set of tikanga for AI use, such as no personal identifiers. Please don't do that. I'm sure most of us are now familiar with that. Check for bias. So what is it made up? And I mentioned earlier in this presentation, the large language models still have a long way to go before they truly understand cultural nuances, etc. So personal identifiers, check for bias, check for credit sources, and reflect on its accuracy. And then finally, then you could choose a safe example. One that's quite fun is create a digital story of their pepeha using AI under those tikanga. So create a digital story of their pepeha using AI under those tikanga. And for those that were in Wellington at the TENZ conference, Sir Ian Taylor showed a book that he created, if I remember correctly, with a puppy with his grandson. And they started with generative tools, created the entire book and published it and read it together, if I recall correctly. I think that's my recollection of it. So that sort of stuff. So a story about their pepeha using AI. And then the outcome for learners is really actually that they become co-designers of ethical AI use. It's culturally grounded and they become tech aware. And if there's 2 things that I feel in New Zealand in education we need, it's equity and access. So we have a responsibility to ensure that we use reliable and responsible AI, but that actually also that it's equitable and that it's accessible. And I know that there's a lot of inroads being made to ensure that we start to get that out to the people that really haven't had that exposure before. And I continue to be, and with many others, looking to support and lead that. So we shall move on to the next slide. And so real classroom scenarios. So I've set up 3 scenarios. They're generic, one's for primary, one's for secondary, and one's for tertiary. I'll give you a moment to read through the slide so you can get a sense of what the scenario is about, and then we'll have a little bit of a talk about it. And this is moving from conceptual to practical. So this is seeing ideas in action in the classrooms across Aotearoa. So in a year 4 or 5 class in primary, for example, get them to co-create characters and stories. We're a great storytelling nation using AI text generator. You as the teacher or the leader or the guide or the parent helper or whatever functional role can frame it, that it helps us frame it. AI could help us brainstorm endings, and we could refine them together. What are some amazing endings to the story we could have, for example? And then the class compares the AI generated version and their own version. So get them to write their own version and then have a look at the AI version. Which ending did they prefer and why? Which one supports creativity, narrative skills, and digital literacy? So on to the secondary school example. An a year 11 science class. You as the teacher, explain the greenhouse effect. Students input that into an AI tool, and then they're given a challenge card, which the challenge card is to refine the answer, to remove jargon, add a Te Ao Māori worldview, incorporate a local example, something like that, and create a series of challenge cards. So it becomes a line of inquiry. It prompts critical thinking, and it strengthens fluency. And then they compare the original versus the refined outputs and discuss prompting and its relevance and its accuracy. This builds the tool fluency, critical thinking, and the local relevance, as I said. And on to a tertiary example. First year university writing course. Students use an AI assistant to draft essay outlines. Then they peer review each other's outlines, edit for voice and academic integrity. And as the teacher in this instance, you could emphasize that AI is actually your coach, not a ghost writer. And so students have reported reduced anxiety, clearer structure, and stronger autonomy using it in this way. And across all the 3 examples, make sure that they're aligned to pedagogy and grounded in ethics. And so now your chance to reflect again. Which scenario fits your context most, and how would you adapt it? And so what one change would you make to ensure it aligns with your learner's identity, your school's values, and the 6 pillars that we've posed during this webinar? So what's one change you'd make to it to ensure that it aligns with your learner's identity, your school's values, and the 6 pillars? I shall pause again. Now, we move on to the final slide. So thank you very much. Throughout this afternoon, we've journeyed from literacy to fluency. I've taken you through the 6 foundational pillars, applied to Te Ao Māori lens, and provided some real classroom scenarios from New Zealand. I believe and would like to hope that you're now equipped with some frameworks, some ideas, and some written reflections that you can act on. And here's what you can do. You can choose one action you will take this week and write it down. And we did this in my masterclass in Wellington as well. You know, what's one action that you think that you would take from what you've discovered today, or the reflections, or the knowledge you brought into this webinar that you wanted to act on, and what might you carry forward into 2026? So look, I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to come and provide me the opportunity to talk to you about artificial intelligence and its application in education. Those that know me know that I'm passionate about this. I'm a passionate New Zealander. I really hope that the session has resonated with you. I hope that you're left more informed, curious, and have greater desire to want to go on and think about how you would apply it, share it amongst your schools, share it amongst your teachers. And as I said, look, welcome the invitation for any of you to reach out to me. You've got my email address there or my mobile number. Love to hear from you. Let's keep this wonderful conversation and korero going. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and back to the main webinar.
Thanks so much, Craig. Really appreciate your korero today. And right at the beginning, you asked about, what does fluency and AI mean to you? And I wrote down knowing when to use it without it being like a light bulb moment. So, when you're struggling, then you go, oh, yeah, that's right. AI might be able to help me with this. And yeah, just being able to fluently, seamlessly put it into my work without thinking about it, kind of like language, right? So
Indeed.
yeah, that's kind of my goal. I use it here, there, and everywhere when I remember to use it.
Yeah.
But I also struggle with knowing the great platforms to use, and I'm kind of stuck with just ChatGPT and Imagine Art, because those are the two that I've tried, and
Mm.
those are the ones I'm comfortable with.
Mm.
So, and there's so many out there. Like you go on Facebook and there's logos for everything, and it's quite frightening as to
It is.
which to
It is.
know what to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, so any advice and guidance on anywhere to go in New Zealand to find out what works for a New Zealand context other than the standard
Sure.
ChatGPT?
Yeah, sure. I'm part of the executive council, or just finished my term as part of the executive council at the AI Forum. So I'd suggest you could go to the aiforum.org. It has a number of free and accessible pieces of information. There's a wonderful lady called Jerry Harris who runs the educational work stream. We've been lobbying is the wrong word, but proactively supporting governments of the day for about 6 years now in writing an AI blueprint for the future that has education, construction, finance, agriculture, etc. We have a governance group. There's a whole lot of governance collateral. It tells you about how you might think about, procure, and use AI tools, etc. So that's sort of a shout out for them. We're a not for profit. It's a whole lot of incredibly dedicated, passionate New Zealanders helping make AI accessible. I'd make the point, Pip, and the rest on the webinar. New Zealand was the last of the OECD countries to develop an AI strategy, and the current government of the day have only just released it. And now I believe it creates an opportunity or pathway for us to really step into it and really think about what that means for the wider Aotearoa. And you were saying, Pip, as you were talking, I was thinking, one of the observations is it's a bit like food. I love food. You have the same meals every day, but it's actually really fantastic to go and try a different food style, or go to a different restaurant, or order something different on the takeaway menu, or something like that. So I'd certainly encourage the audience to be curious, but be safe. And so there are some good places that you can go. I know that there's also at the AI forum, there's also a whole lot of links to materials and other things that would assist your audience as well.
Fantastic. I wrote down your prompt guides, goal, context, format, criteria. I need to keep that in mind. And yeah, I did the activity and it was really useful activity to do. Um, yeah, so that was super helpful, but do we say please or do we not say please?
Oh, interesting. Uh, I started my working career in 1985, so that might give you some context of how old I am for those on the webinar. I grew up as a railway child, so myself and my brothers were the first in our generation to finish high school and go on to university. Our parents uh, ensured that education was at the forefront of everything we did. And when I started in banking and finance, which was my first job, my nana grabbed my ear and told me that the only business advice she had was to have good manners. So I would suggest to your answer, is it please or not, be respectful. You would think of it like having a conversation with some wonderful people that you respect and love. So be respectful in that way. Um, but it's entirely optional. But I would
Mm.
suggest that good manners goes a long way.
Yeah, I can't help it. I have to say please. It's in my nature to say please when you're
Yeah,
asking something.
yeah,
Yeah, it's quite a difference, using ChatGPT to Google, you're yeah, it's a fascinating fact. And with that, I'm going to share our feedback screen. So if you'd like to give us some feedback on today's session and suggest some topics for any webinars going forward, please go to that link or scan the QR code. If you want to start a conversation around around AI today, go to our ākonga forum space and kick off any questions you may have. And thank you so much, Craig. I am going to finish off with a karakia, if I can go to the next slide. Oh, the next webinar. Yeah. So the next webinar is with Anna Douglas and Julie Swindon from BCITO. They're going to be discussing the new BCAT skill standards that are coming out next year and all the resources available. Really excited about this. The skill standards go from unit standards I've just achieved to achieve merit excellence. So what a great resource. And that will be on the 10th of December, a little bit earlier than normal in the lead up to Christmas. And I will finish this off for a karakia. Thanks so much, Craig. Kia mātou katoa, kua mutu mātou, ia mātou mahi, ia mātou kaupapa hoki, arahina mātou, kia kawe mātou, ia mātou haipepa, kia whakatapu mātou ki ngā kaupapa mea whakapono, manaaki tia mai mātou. Kia ora everyone, thanks.